Hi, everyone. We are here for scripting the book as opposed to the normal Writing to Write channel, but this is a watch party for Dune 2021. I am joined by my wife, Adriana, and our very sleepy dog over there, Rufus. So if you get some sleep woofs, they might come through. We are about to start the movie. It's the 2021 version of Dune. There are two stopping points that we can do. So there's one at about 45:25 is a potential pause, and then 1:40:04 because otherwise it's about 3 hours long, and that's a movie. So without any further ado, if you want to get started right now, we are about to press the start button. So go. So there's a lot of throat singing at the beginning. And while we're going through this, I have some Dune facts. So, a bunch of Dune facts I'll rattle off during the credits or when I'm not talking during the movie. And this will go over that lovely, lovely throat singing. Now, at the start, I'll focus on the 1984 version with David Lynch. As we move through the credits, then I'll sprinkle facts in about the 2021 version for this movie itself. So, I've read the book. I've watched the 1984 version a handful of times, and I've watched the 2021 version right up until the last few minutes because that's how long my flight was.
Meanwhile, I have not read the book or seen the movie. I do not know what this is about other than a desert planet.
Pretty much, yeah. That's all you need to know. There we go.
So, given that I've been watching Euphoria, which stars Zendaya, I'm really appreciating that. I'm assuming spice is a drug.
Kind of. Well, that's what they're going through right here. So it's used to travel across the stars. It's basically their fuel system. But it is also a drug that allows you to see the future in some people.
So I'm assuming that George Lucas stole the idea for spice here from Dune.
Where was spice in Star Wars? Oh, the Ormantelli. Yeah.
Because I assume the book Dune predates 1977 Star Wars.
So that's a later fact that I have, but it's kind of a cool circle where you have Dune the book inspired Star Wars the movie, and then Star Wars the movie inspired Dune the movie in 1984 and in this version. So kind of comes full circle.
Yeah.
And speaking about Dune the book, it won the very first Nebula Award in 1966.
Is it a good book? Like, would I like it?
It's a dense book. It is definitely of its time.
Dense books can be good.
It's enjoyable. It has a rotating third-person narrative where you'll be in one person's head and there's no break, and then it'll just be in the person they're talking to's head. So it's kind of confusing to read, and it's very... It will pause whatever's going on and give you backstory. So dense books are not bad, but this book is a very dense book. So they're starting off on the water planet Caladan, where the Atreides live.
The opposite of Dune.
Yes.
This is Waterworld.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically. Well, it's not quite Waterworld, but
there's no Kevin Costner.
There's no Kevin Costner. There's no overflowing. Yes. Thank you, Jedi Dick Sensei. The spice must flow.
So I'm glad I'm not the only person who hears spice and immediately thinks Star Wars.
Yeah, but spice wasn't that big in Star Wars. I mean, Han was a smuggler for spice, yes, but it doesn't really play a major role in the movies at all.
Right.
As significant a role in Dune. Like, Dune revolves around the spice. Star Wars, you had people who were involved, but it wasn't really the prime plot point.
Okay.
Oh, and also, if you feel lost in this movie with various terms, the original movie in 1984 handed out primers and glossaries to people who were going to the movie so they could follow along. So don't feel bad if you don't catch all the terms.
Fair enough.
And if you have any questions about specific terms, I'm more than happy to answer them. So, post them in the comments. I got my screen over here, got my computer over here. I have the movie up there, and then for my wife, we also have the Wales rugby game going on too. So
Wales just lost to Italy in an extremely upsetting upset. It's not a great way to start this.
So if we do lose power at some point, assume that it's only because we've blown a circuit in my house from all the electronics that are simultaneously running.
Yeah, that's me. Yes, thank you, sweetie. I do need someone to comfort me. Birthdays.
So this is the explanation of what the spice does and why it's important.
I just...
So it's used as fuel for interstellar travel.
I just feel like the fact that it's a hallucinogen that's effectively like a religious hallucinogen means it's based on ayahuasca, which is a ceremonial tea used by native and indigenous tribes.
I tried to stay away from that. I do have some notes about it, but the real life allegories to various religions and people, and like you mentioned, actual objects
like,
is fairly uncomfortable in Dune.
I just feel like that's probably where the original writer got his idea from and then ran from there.
Right.
But when was Dune written?
It came out in 1966. So...
Okay, so it has like 1966 ideas about indigenous people.
Yes.
Which means that it's extremely upsetting.
Yes.
Okay.
And this movie does a good job of kind of diversifying things, but the Dune itself and the 1984 version were very, very uncomfortable moments. So he's a Mentat, which is basically a human computer, because prior to this, there was some kind of cyber war where basically humanity kind of devolved due to all the robots, and then they sort of took over again.
Did you catch that his eyes flashed white?
Yes.
Which is very much a throwback to Data from Star Trek TNG. I feel like that was done intentionally.
Yeah, that's fair. So going back to how this film was once deemed unfilmable, before the 1984 version, there were a bunch of different directors tied to the craft their own versions. And one of them was Alejandro Jodorowsky, who wanted to have Pink Floyd for the soundtrack, Orson Welles as Baron Harkonnen, and Salvador Dali as the Emperor. And that version was going to be a 14-hour movie.
That's not a movie. That's a miniseries.
Back then, it would have been a 14-hour movie. And
which is untenable. That is not market. You can't market that.
You can't market, of course, but people still would have gone. Fans of the show, fans of the book.
Like 8 people would have gone to sit. You have to have like 5 intermissions at that point.
You do realize that they did the entire Marvel movies leading up to Endgame, which was like a 48, 72-hour nonstop showing.
I did not know that.
Oh, they did. And
you know that I never would have gone to that.
I wouldn't either, but people did. Because they wanted to watch all the movies leading up to Endgame, and then
That's what we have Disney Plus for.
Yes.
Like, I'm doing a Marvel rewatch. That's what Disney Plus is for.
Yes, but you're also doing Marvel rewatch over like multiple weeks.
Yes,
they were doing it in
I
72
have
hours.
A job.
Wow.
And like a life. And a necessity to use the bathroom.
You can use the bathroom in the movie theater. You just, miss.
You just can't shower.
Oh yeah, there's that.
48 hours of a packed theater going to the bathroom.
I don't 48 hours.
I don't want to use that bathroom at that point.
Well, you can go home. There's enough time for you to go home, skip one of the middle movies that you don't necessarily want to watch, and then come back. Again, I have no interest.
Thor 2.
Oh. You watched it and you said it was all right.
I said it was all right because like the baseline of terrible movies for that franchise is still The Incredible Hulk, which they don't even include as part of the MCU in lists and Disney Plus.
True. So, well, I'll wait to say it for just a second.
I do appreciate that Oscar Isaac is in this movie.
That's not Oscar Isaac, though. That is Jason Momoa.
No, that's not, but he was in there earlier.
And guess who played Jason Momoa in the 1984 version? The Duncan, Idaho character.
I don't know.
Patrick Stewart.
I love Patrick Stewart. I prefer Jason Momoa because he's very handsome. He's a good-looking man.
Hey, Patrick Stewart's a handsome man.
In a different way.
Fun fact.
It's a very different way.
Fun fact, the only reason why Patrick Stewart was hired was because the director, David Lynch, wanted to get a different Patrick Stewart for the role. And he ended up getting a wildly qualified Shakespearean actor.
I mean, I feel like that's a theme through these. They get like one like chef's kiss, fully pedigreed actor in any sci-fi movie that is successful.
Well, they got a lot of fantastic actors here.
Right. But like as far as pedigreed actors, like there's top of the top tier have been in it to win it for decades.
You have Josh Brolin. You have Javier Bardem.
I'm sorry. Josh Brolin is not a high, like he's not Patrick Stewart level. I'm thinking like Alec Guinness.
You have one Oscar winner and 3 Oscar nominated actors.
You know how I feel about the Oscars.
That's true. I'm just saying there's a large pedigree for this.
Right, but the lead is Timothy Chalamet, which is a little bit of a hard sell.
So yeah, Nia, the vixen of fiction, she also prefers Jason, but she does love Patrick. Ooh, Patrick Stewart got voted sexiest man alive or something. Thank you, Martin. He's
I just think that Patrick Stewart is a different variety of sexy from Jason Momoa. That's all.
Also, keep in mind, this was 1984 man. Patrick Stewart.
I have not seen that movie.
Just picture like 5 years, 10 years prior to Star Trek Next Generation.
Fair enough.
You're welcome. Let me do my hellos. We got Richard Holiday. We got Martin Lejeune. Thank you both for joining. Yeah, give a shout out if you like the movie. Give a shout out in the book. Richard Holiday, that is a great question. Did he have hair in 1984? Technically, no. He was definitely bald up top. He had
he went bald really young.
Yeah, he had the side stuff trimmed very, very short. So he still looked good. So I will say that.
I do appreciate. At this point, we've been talking, so I don't know the lead character's name.
Paul Atreides and his father, Leto Atreides.
Okay. Well, he just basically said, like, my father fought bulls for a living, and look where that got him. I feel like he, like, thinks his grandfather was, like, some Hemingway character.
So, this is extended universe, but the bull that killed him, killed Duke Leo's father, was drugged, or there was some kind of tampering with the bull itself, so that was an assassination attempt, and the Harkonnens killed his father. I don't know if they know that in this, though. I know this.
He wore a wig in I, Claudius. Oh, man. I, Claudius is that is niche. That is, like, the only people I know who have watched all of I, Claudius took Latin in high school, like my sister. And it's like a little mini series. It is so for when it was shot, so it was basically pornography. Because I assume you have not seen I,
I have not seen it now.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I assume that at this point,
It's
Patrick Stewart has done all Shakespearean, every Shakespearean role.
Claudius is like a study of Caligula, who was like a notably pornographic.
What timestamp are we at? So we are at
1445.
1445.
He wanted to be a pilot. What? Oscar Isaac.
Oh yeah. Fair enough.
I'm sorry. I love little things like that. You know that.
So we're going back and forth between the Star Wars things. So David Lynch in the 1980s was offered to direct Return of the Jedi, and instead he decided to do Dune. So,
ooh, that choice didn't age well.
It was his least. He does. It is a difficult classic, but he does regret making Dune or that version, or he doesn't like that. Version.
Return of the Jedi is, in my opinion, an underrated Star Wars movie.
True.
And I feel like I get it. This is like effectively like Dune is like nerd pornography, but Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, so this is Martin's opinion. Martin's opinion is that he found the book insufferably slow and he didn't finish the 1984 film. Oh, man. That's a shame. The 1984 film also did not age well, but it does tell a complete story, so I'll say that.
Who is that?
Josh Brolin.
See, this is what I'm saying. Like, the only thing I know about Josh Brolin is, like, wasn't he married to Barbara Streisand?
You're asking the wrong
literally
person.
all I know about it. Like,
but he's the dude, isn't he? Now I need to look that up.
Thank you. Please do.
Josh Brolin acting career.
Whenever someone says penetrate, all I could think is still not a good enough reason to use the word penetrate.
Well, he was Thanos.
He was like CGI Thanos.
True. Who am I thinking of? Oh, wow. He was in the Goonies, too.
And the music video by Cyndi Lauper for the Goonies.
All right. Well, I am definitely off on this one, so I got to IMDb this really quick. Shoot, what did I say?
I don't know what you said. Wait.
Jeff Bridges. I was confusing him with Jeff Bridges.
You're confusing him with the Big Lebowski?
Yes, for a second.
That's such a different person.
I'm aware, but he's also very well known. Let's see here. Yeah, thank you, Martin. I was completely wrong. It was Jeff Bridges, but Brolin was in a lot of similar roles, and he was Thanos, so I will say that.
I know, but that's like asking me to pinpoint the guy that was Gollum. Like, if there's that much CGI, should I really know who it is?
Absolutely. Andy Serkis is completely...
I can actually pick out Andy Serkis because I was so intrigued that I looked him up, but like, I was not intrigued enough by the portrayal of Thanos to look him up, and I feel like that says something, frankly.
Fair enough. And yeah, we definitely have a few people who either did not finish the book or fell asleep during the 1984 movie. So,
okay, well, I'm glad I'm going in totally cold. I still kind of...
Sorry, we've been talking a lot, but are you still catching up or anything? Or
I mean, yeah, he's from a super wealthy house. He's expected to be good at battling, but also knowledge and stuff. Like, he's effectively like an 1860s lord, but on a different planet.
Well, this is the Harkonnen, so that's the rival family who just lost the desert planet.
Okay, why is there always an older, malformed, decrepit man in these movies?
Well, so the backstory is that he's survived several assassination attempts.
Okay.
But the other thing is that they, again, going back to how this is dated, they have an evil, overly obese man as the
I
villain.
get very tired of obese characters and disabled characters
Uh,
and typed gay characters
oh,
being
it's worse than
cast
that.
as the
Yeah,
villain. It's
it gets
extremely frustrating.
it's worse than that because he's all of those, I think.
That that just like it's the same thing with like the Lion King. It's the reason why it pisses me off. They always make Scar gay.
Let's see here. So, so Richard actually has a bookmark in his copy of Dune where he didn't finish it. I am very close. So if you've been following along, I overestimated where I was when I last said it on Margaret Pinard's podcast. I was at 70 when I said I was at 75. So now I'm at 85, and I should be able to finish it within the next few days. So I'm going to finish Dune.
In the time that you've read Dune, I have read an entire series of fluffy romance novels, and I will not apologize for that.
Mm-hmm. So, Richard, to explain why the Harkonnens lost the desert planet, it's kind of a massive deception. So they are setting up the Atreides to fail in Arrakis and ultimately be destroyed by both the Emperor and the Harkonnens combined. So there's a lot of political scheming in this that may or may not get conveyed well enough. And let's see here. Yeah, an entire series of fluffy romance books still has a lower page count than Dune. Let's see. And yeah, there's a great doc. Thank you for pointing that out. There's a great doc for Jodorowsky's Dune about the eccentric Frenchman attempts. Yeah, like I said, he was going to come out with a 14-hour version of Dune, which, as you had mentioned, would have been completely unwatchable.
I will reply back to the comment about the fluffy romance novels and point out that I read Anna Karenina in less time than it took you to read Dune.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just finished that in December, so.
So Richard doesn't understand the 4D chess that's played. Basically, the Atreides house is getting too powerful, and so the Emperor wants to take them out by using the Harkonnens. That's and the Emperor was in on the conspiracy. His goal is to take out House Atreides by pitting them against House Harkonnen. Meanwhile, House Harkonnen is trying to maybe take on the Emperor. Oh, by the way, that's the bull that killed their grandfather. They just have it hanging up on the wall.
Cool.
It's Voldemort after he lets himself go on the takeaways. Ooh.
I mean, I have other. There's whole issues with Voldemort. There's whole issues with Harry Potter that we won't go into. You know, I love Harry Potter, but I have lots of issues with it.
Oh, I completely agree. But this is a very momentous moment, so I'm going to shut up.
I'm gonna end his stream single. Sorry.
The movie or the
movie?
This is like a serious moment and you're laughing.
What's in the box?
Pain. She said that.
Well, at least now I know where Fear is the Mind Killer comes from.
She never said to remove the sand.
She said enough. It's implied. Huh, see? He's like a lord.
Yeah. I said he's... But who's his mother? I mean, who's his mother? Who's he inheriting from his mother? We already know that's his mother.
I mean, we don't know anything about his mother. Except that she was really, she loves him. And if he died, she would have been real bummed. Womp womp.
So yeah, that was a very important scene, so I wanted to stay quiet during it.
Well, that's why I watched it and didn't make fun of it. Except for the what's in the box portion. Oh, interesting. I'm intrigued by the response. Oh God, his bloody mother.
Well, so the big thing is the Bene Gesserits have been kind of trying to make the ultimate universal being, and they've been trying to control everything within they're one of the other factions that are trying. Yeah, there's some eugenics in there. So
you're defining eugenics.
Well, yeah, it's also a spoiler that they don't include in the movie about who his mother is. So I don't want to say it here, but so this movie was written by 3 different people. There's Eric Roth, John Spates, and the director Denis Villeneuve. And so they've got a wide pedigree of movies. Like Eric Roth did Munich and Forrest Gump. John Spates did Prometheus and Doctor Strange. And Eric Roth actually writes all his screenplays on Movie Master, which is a 30-year-old MS-DOS application. So just some random tidbits.
Still?
Yeah, still.
Ew, why?
George R. Martin writes in MS-DOS too, or like an old application.
Yeah, and look at how slow it takes him to it takes him ages to write books. Maybe it'd be faster if he used a modern word processor. Because I know you're all extremely interested. Now Ireland, Scotland is playing down there, so I can keep track.
Oh, imagine if George R. Martin lost the floppy disk with the latest Game of Thrones on it. Probably takes a couple of floppy disks on there because those things really could not hold much.
He's not using modern text, like he's using TXT files. He's probably fine.
Fair enough. Yeah, but so Martin's comment is George R. Martin writes quite fast. He just stops to write reference books as he goes. And the problem with that is that those reference books then become prequels and a sprawling universe of books that he's been working on.
Just waiting on the winds of winter or whatever book we're waiting on.
It's coming soon. So
We've been saying that for like 4 years.
More than 4 years. It's been 4 years since he said it's coming next year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right. This fantastic soundtrack comes from none other than Hans Zimmer, and he opted.
That makes sense. That's why it's good.
He opted to score this instead of Tennant, as he was a huge fan of the novels.
Good job. That was a good choice.
And thank you for pointing out that this is beautiful because Caladan was filmed in Stanlandet Peninsula in Norway.
I mean, we're only like what 20 minutes in, and I will say the cinematography is like excellent, truly very good. They're doing something a lot better than a lot of the shows we've watched recently, where they shoot things that are dark without them being too dark to see, which is a pet peeve.
Yeah, this is very, very bright, which is great. And thank you. Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining. I agree. This is completely beautiful setting, cinematography, everything. I think it won awards, didn't it, for cinematography?
I have no idea.
Fair enough. And then Martin's comment is, I feel so bad for the poor intern that has to convert George R. R. Martin's DOS files to something the publisher can actually print from.
You should, because I got so frustrated. I manage a government website as my day job, and we used to not have a multimedia team in my office, so we would get videos, and I would have to take the transcripts and manually turn them into closed captions, which means that each line can't be more than 42 characters, and I had to do it by hand. I got so frustrated that I just wrote my own program to parse it all down, and then all I had to do was time code it. So I can't imagine doing that with a novel.
And so now that we were leaving the Water Planet, which was filmed in Norway, we are now on Arrakis, which was filmed in the Liwa Oasis of the United Arab Emirates, as well as the Wadi Rum in Jordan.
Was it? I know that Star Wars was filmed in the Middle East. Was it filmed in UAE? Morocco. Okay.
And you can still go there. They have the Tatooine buildings still there.
Because they just abandoned it.
They're kind of falling apart, though, because it's been...
no one is taking care of them because they abandoned it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that unless you have an agreement in place from the local area now, you can't... Like, all of the contracts to film in a location mean you have to clean up after yourself.
Right.
Don't go there. It got a bit
Tunisia.
racist. A little bit.
So there is a quote from Hans Zimmer made describing how his daughter, who was obviously in his house, and he was recording this in his living room due to COVID, and she will tell everybody that she suffers from bagpipe PTSD because it's 5:30 in the morning and I'm still blasting away and the whole house is shaking. So, oof. I mean, as incredible as it would be to have Hans Zimmer as a father, it would be torturous to have it
to live with bagpipes.
To have him in the living room.
No.
Well, that was just for this particular movie because he went.
I know, but like
he was recording.
It probably took him weeks of just bagpipes.
Yeah.
No, hard pass. Trying to see.
Richard, yeah. So does that mean you can't escape Internet Explorer? No, I think you guys are modernizing.
We're on
everything.
Edge.
Yes, they're on Edge.
I'm a web developer, so I have Firefox, Chrome, and Edge.
Yeah,
and then a whole separate developer laptop.
I was going to say I work in security, so there are quite a few clients where I can only test things on Internet Explorer, which makes me want to weep every time it happens.
I was successful in fighting that argument that we should not have to support a deprecated browser that's no longer supported by the company that makes it.
This is a huge security vulnerability.
The government agency I work for would not allow that to roll.
I know. I love MS Edge. It's the easiest way to download Chrome on a new Windows install. Yeah. Gotta love Windows for making Internet Explorer and then later Microsoft Edge a fundamental part of its operating system.
Unpopular opinion, but as a web developer, I prefer to test stuff on Edge and Firefox because that's where you'll find glitches that don't work.
That is true. Chrome does.
A lot of people are using Edge as default, and we have to hit the most people and make sure stuff's not buggy.
That's fair. And actually, there's quite a few security issues where Chrome just doesn't let you do them. So that's also need to test in Firefox and
Chrome is the easiest to test on because it's easiest to disable local caching.
But you're getting called out. Martin says you're a web designer who writes code. You've never read Dune.
I have never read Dune. But I'm also a rugby player who didn't particularly like the movie Invictus. So think the bigger one is. The bigger one is that I have a computer science degree and I've never read Dune.
Now, going into the actors, we have Timothée Chalamet, who was 23 during the filming and played a 15-year-old Paul Atreides. Those age wasn't specified.
He looks like he could be a teenager. It's one of the few times I've seen someone in their 20s who looks like they could be a teenager.
He's pushing it. You're right. He's not Spider-Man bad, but he is.
This movie came out in, you said what?
So it was originally supposed to come out.
Filmed 2020.
It was filmed well before that. It was supposed to hit theaters in November 2020, but obviously didn't for specific reasons.
Okay, so Zendaya is like what, like 21 in this movie?
I don't honestly know.
She was born in 1996.
Yeah, 21 sounds about right.
Oh no!
Yeah, Martin's in the UK, so.
I played rugby. Ben has never played rugby. I played in college and then after college.
But that's more general you. Like we do have rugby over here. That's actually a pretty big.
Yes.
Pretty big rugby.
Rugby is a big college sport. It's a college club sport.
And it's actually a pretty decent league around us.
I'm surprised you're watching the stream and not Ireland, Scotland.
Yeah, there's no shoulder pads for rugby.
There actually are shoulder pads.
You don't wear them. I mean,
no, I don't wear them.
And yeah. The moon is causing issues for their comms.
I don't know what the hand of God is supposed to refer to.
That's what they just showed it. It was on the moon. It looked like a hand. It's like the face on the moon, face on our moon. They have one that looks like a hand. I don't get that. American football baffles me. They carry the ball in their hands. You carry the ball in your...
He's referring to English
soccer.
Football.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Rugby football does carry the ball in their hands, but they can also just drop kick it whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
Martin writes sci-fi novels. He didn't know that Ireland and Scotland are playing Tiddlywinks.
Oh, they're playing for middling rankings is what they're playing for right now. And I can feel comfortable saying that because Wales did not get the wooden spoon, so and I can be sassy.
In the last scene, Josh Brolin was pretty big in there, so I did want to mention that he didn't bother reading the Dune script before signing on. Again, this is Dune. Like, no matter what the script is, you're going to say yes. Hearing,
the book is not amazing.
And yet it has such a massive following, and it inspired so much modern sci-fi.
You could say the same thing of Stranger in a Strange Land, and I hated that book. Viscerally hated it.
And if somebody came up to you and said, do you want to act in a movie directed by, somebody famous for Stranger in a Strange Land, you'd probably say yes.
It would depend. Is it enough money that I can afford to quit my job?
Fair enough.
Because you could say yes to any movie like that. Any movie.
It's a Chris Blade. Hey, Rufus. Chris
Hello.
Knife, sorry.
Okay. I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of religious experiences here, which is really uncomfortable because they said that the Bene Gesserits went across the stars to embed their religion. And so now they're finding out that the people, they embedded religion and then people worship that religion. And years later, they are trying to get people to fit into the roles of saviors within that religion. It feels very, very uncomfortable. Stranger in a Strange Land is, this is what Martin's saying. Stranger in a Strange Land is weird. Moon is a harsh mistress is Heinlein's masterpiece.
I will consider reading it. Stranger in a Strange Land has the distinction of being the only book that when I finished it, I threw it in the garbage. so that no one else would have to read it. I've never done that with any other book.
Fair enough. Let me check out the time. All right, so we are almost at a breaking point. Since this is a 3-hour movie, we don't need to quite marathon it. But at 45:25, which is coming up in about 4 minutes, we can take a short 5-minute break to regroup. Because again, for 3 hours, this is quite difficult.
Yeah, if this didn't win any cinematography awards, that's a shame. It really should. Is that LeVar Burton?
No, it can't be. Can't really see him. I don't think. No, that's not him. You can barely see his face, but I'm almost that's not him.
It sounds like him.
That's fair. So, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, fair enough. So, Starship Troopers want some. Oh, are you talking about Starship Troopers want some cinematography, or are you talking about Dune wanting some cinematography? Fair enough. British peak, and the BAFTAs is the British prequel to the Oscars.
Yeah, so it's not LeVar Burton, but whoever that person was sounds a lot like him, because it wasn't about you couldn't see his face, but I was like, reading Rainbow?
But yeah, talking about how this is a very dense book. They are information dumping and world building around us. Yeah, Dune won the awards. Thank you, Richard. Like, so you don't have any context for what that thing is, but it detects motion and movement, which is why he's staying perfectly still.
Kind of still.
Well, he's hidden by the holographic projection.
So it's not a. Sorry, that was for the other screen. So it's not a particularly sophisticated motion detector.
It's actually being remote controlled, and they'll go into that probably after we take our first break. And now I'll explain what it is. Guess my marker was off. There we go. So yeah, we'll pause right here. We'll take a 5-minute break. So if you want to just hang out, I guess, or we can just keep going whenever you're ready. But
when's the next break is a better question.
An hour 40:04 is the next good break.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
All right, go for it. I'll hang out with Rufus.
Try to keep Rufus from running through the wires.
Yeah. So how are you all doing right now? Because this is, I'm loving this. This is. I'm enjoying the movie. We got it pretty good, so that's something.
That's something for not knowing anything about the show.
Yeah, so I don't know if you could hear it, but we got it pretty good for somebody who doesn't know anything about the show. And you'll see that as soon as my wife leaves, my dog expands over to take her seat. So, yeah, Richard, that is fair. When's the next break? I mean, it is 3 hours long, and that is quite a lot to sit still for. You know, we're very, very spoiled now that we don't have a whole lot of end games coming up anytime soon. So the usual movies that I watch now are between the hour 30, hour 45-minute mark. So having something doubling that essentially is uh, requires more preparation. And yes, as she said, Adriana definitely does have a notoriously tiny bladder. So, you know. In the meantime, I'll give my dog ear scratches, and I can throw in some more facts to keep you all entertained. So let's see. We have Josh Brolin, who is playing Gurney Halleck, and Javier Bardem, who will be showing up shortly. They're going to be reunited for the first time on screen in 14 years since starring together in No Country for Old Men. Oh no, she's not wishing the film away, Richard. She's enjoying it, so that means something. And then Rebecca Ferguson, who plays Paul's mother, Lady Jessica, and Zendaya, who we haven't seen, or we've only seen in visions. They're also going to be reunited in this film after both having previously appeared in The Great Showman in 2017. So not quite as long as No Country for Old Men, but still, still a few years since they were together on screen. And if I have my timing correct on this upcoming scene, I believe that we'll see the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen again, who was played by Stellan Skarsgård, and he spent 7 hours a day applying makeup for the role, which is devotion to its craft, to say the least, especially since everything about that sounds uncomfortable. Martin saying that before he met his wife, she would often bother me in visions. Well, I think you said something about how you were enjoying the spice, so the spice must flow. And then the last fact I have about the specific actors is that Sting almost cameoed in this movie after having played the role of Fade Routha in the 1984 version. His cameo was cut, and I am fairly certain that Fade Routha will not show up. Fade Routha is the nephew of the Baron Harkonnen, and I think that role is kind of combined together by Dave Bautista's character. So I think Fade Routha will be in the sequel to this movie, but it's so far just been Dave Bautista as the Beast Harkonnen. I forget what he's Rabin the Beast Harkonnen. And my wife is coming back. I think she might have brought a cookie.
Do you want cookies?
Nah, it's all right. I don't think we have anything good upstairs. I've eaten all the good Girl Scout cookies. So we are.
Yes, hello, baby.
Once you get situated, we can start this back up again. Yeah, sorry. We have it all. We have all wires tangled up. We are trying to listen to the movie through the Roku that we have set up so that we don't trigger any copyrights. So otherwise it'll get picked up by the microphone because it's pretty strong, and we want to listen to it at an appropriate volume. So okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to stop by, so we are ready to go, and I'm going to press play. So if you are all ready, we are going to get back into it in 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So Richard says they really should have gotten the Spice Girls to do the theme song of this movie. Wow. That would be quite the intro. Not quite Hans Zimmer, but definitely memorable.
Well, all I have to do is do. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Spice.
So yeah, there's Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron Harkonnen and his 7 hours of makeup. He's playing to betray that word. Oh boy, now we're starting up some Spice Girls in the chat room. It's getting worse and worse. So Dennis, the director, what should the theme be for the song? And then Hans Zimmer, just tell me what you want. So one of the really cool things about this is they are very careful with the words they say. Yeah, that was completely unnecessary for him to levitate, but he's wearing these suspenders that allow him to float. But sorry, the whole point of why everyone needs to tell the truth is because they have these Bene Gesserits and truthsayers who can detect when somebody's lying to them. So he needs to say, "I did not harm the Paul Atreides or his mother, Lady Jessica," and he needs to be able to stand in interrogation for a truthsayer. So what he can do is just abandon them in the desert, so he's not directly harming them.
So perhaps this is a stupid question.
There's no stupid question.
Particularly as someone who grew up on the beach where dunes are protected, and I know what dunes are, why do they keep referring to this as a dune when it is not a dune?
Because there's a lot of dunes on the planet. So
are there actually though?
Well, they're in the city. You'll see them more when they actually get into more of the planet.
Can it be a dune if it's not in close proximity to an ocean?
Yeah, because the dune is just the rolling sands.
That is not what a dune is.
Dune definition. Mound or ridge of sand or loose sediments formed by wind, especially on the seacoast or in a desert.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, hello.
So all a dune is rolling sands. I mean, that arguably speaking, was Arrakeen is a city, so that is the city on Dune, I guess. I don't know.
There's only one city on this planet?
Oh no, Richard was doing a
No, I saw it. I chose to ignore it.
That's bad, Richard.
As much as I love them, the pun is the lowest form of the joke.
Well, it's a good thing this is midday and not after hours, because then the dirty jokes come out.
True.
Yep. So yeah, I do like that they I agree with Richard that the VXX video visual effects people didn't add in extra grain effects or extra tints.
That was a pun.
Ah. Well, it's a valid point, because they do tend to give like a nice yellow haze over a lot of these.
No, film grain is like the old school like film where like all of the
Westerns.
lines are thicker. Following is the only movie I can think of that adds film grain. It was like Christopher Nolan's first movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what happened right now is that Jason Momoa went out and met with the Fremen to try and gauge how they're fighting, how many of them there are to recruit as a fighting force. Because right now they know that the Harkonnens and the Emperor are coming for them. So they're trying to raise up an army, and they know that the Fremen are extremely skilled. So basically trying to use the native population to combat the upcoming invasion.
Oh, as far as what Martin said, yeah, sorry, I'm a very nitpicky person. It does benefit Ben, though, when I read through his stuff and give him notes. I think I'm like the number one person that gives you synonyms and tells you this is not the word you meant.
That is true. So we got Javier Bardem. So obviously on a desert planet, the bodily fluids of a person are extremely essential.
There are a lot of jokes there. Oh, fair enough. I didn't know if following added extra grain. I was just trying to describe the effect of what it would look like to Ben, and I feel like I made you watch Following once.
I don't think I watched it.
We have it on DVD. It's a good movie. Everyone makes fun of DVDs until you realize there's a few films that you can't stream anywhere.
To be fair, they're usually on the internet. Like you can find,
I know, but who wants to go through that process?
and they're usually on less reputable sites.
Right. Plus, I mean, this was, I bought it back in the day when like Christopher Nolan was still relatively new and could use the support.
So yeah, this is the Q moment in the James Bond movie where he's just giving him all the items that will be used before the end of this movie. So we got some back and forth banter between Richard and Martin. So just assume everything Dickie says is a pun. He's known for taking up residence in people's chats and repeating them.
This is what I get for not living on AuthorTube.
Fair enough. That's a pun. So his book is called Nightmare Tenant. And the big thing is in this scene is that they're using balloons to move the crawlers that are used to harvest spice, and they can't go across the desert without attracting the worms there. So they have to use balloons to drop them where they need.
That escalated quickly.
They're very overprotective of the Duke.
This is just a preview of Arizona in 20 years.
Oh yeah, but I mean, if you understand what they're saying, you are drinking your own bodily fluids.
What do you think astronauts do?
True. So he will know the customs. That is them seeing him as their religious icon. And the cool thing, so the still suits that they are using now were meant to be a lighter color in the book to help blend in with the sand, obviously, and they made them darker in this film so that they popped more on film.
And therefore also would attract more heat from the sun.
True. So there are your dunes.
But he called it his dune.
Yeah.
As if the whole planet was a singular dune.
Well, the whole planet's called, I mean, Arrakis is called Dune. Just like Earth is called Earth.
Do you see the problem there?
I mean, you can call it whatever you want.
See how Arrakis has two names and you just said Earth is called Earth? You mean Terra?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going for?
Well, yeah, whatever. Astronauts also left bags of poo on the moon. Uh-oh.
I mean, we can all piddle about not recycling our bodily fluids, but like in about 100 years, I feel like it's gonna become more or less modern standard.
I also don't remember if I said this already, so if I did, I apologize. But in the 1984 version, to make some of the sand gusting effects, some of the smoke effects in the desert, they just burned massive amounts of tires. So not the most.
In 2020, are they kidding me?
No, this was in 1984 version.
Oh.
Here it's all graphics and everything, but back in 1984, they just burned a whole bunch of tires in the desert.
I mean, they also had lead and gasoline at that point, so like they weren't exactly environmentally or health conscious.
It was 80s. It was a done thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard.
Ha 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 ha. It's not like we're paying for it now.
And the carryall is that balloon. So the big thing is that they're using all the equipment that was left by the Harkonnens. And the woman who is leading the flight right now, she's from the Imperium, and she's trying to mitigate to make sure that they left sufficient supplies and sufficient mining equipment so they continue to mine, and that the Harkonnens didn't just sabotage everything.
I do feel compelled to point out that we call it the moon because it is a moon. It is the only moon in close proximity to us. Its name is Luna, but it is a moon. And the same is true of the sun. It is a sun, but it is the sun closest to us. We don't call it the sun, capital S. It is the sun, which is the sun closest to us.
Yeah, and so the woman's primary job is to make sure that equipment failures such as this aren't due to sabotage. Although it's very unclear in this moment whether or not it was actually sabotaged or whether it's just equipment malfunctioning due to the desert climate. Because he hasn't actually stepped foot on real Arrakis, sort of the city Arrakeen. And there's spice in this part of the desert.
So they like filter the spice from the sand.
Mm-hmm. Which is getting used for interstellar travel.
But it's also a drug.
It's also a drug, yes. And it's characteristics of that drug that turn the Fremen's eyes blue, which is why they all have blue eyes.
The contact lens budget on this movie must have been outrageous.
So they decided not to do contacts and just do it digital.
That explains why it looks kind of wonky.
And there's the first viewing of the sandworm. It's also really important that what the Duke said was to worry more about the people than the spice that's contained within the crawler.
Right, because he's not a garbage person.
Yes, like the Harkonnens. But again, he just took a massive hit of spice. And in some people, it allows them to see the future or see different timelines.
But everyone thinks they do.
Now, this entire thing isn't just one Jacob's Ladder scenario.
But it could be. You have to admit, it's possible that the rest of this movie is just an LSD fever dream he's having. It's your own fault for introducing me to How Did This Get Made?
Yeah, How Did This Get Made is another podcast professionally done with Paul Scheer. Who else?
Oh, what's his name? Avery loves him. He's in so many things. Jason
Mantzoukas.
Thank you.
And then Paul's wife, Rachel. Starts with an R? Either way, so it's a fun podcast about a lot of movies. They typically focus on bad movies.
Yes.
So it's How Did This Get Made and
June Diane
Raphael. There we go.
I knew it wasn't Rachel.
Raphael. I feel like that was pretty close. So yes, he is completely high at this point.
Yeah.
And you can see just how big the sandworm is because it's able to eat the entire crawler. And you can see that the Fremen worship the sandworms.
It's kind of hard to like understand visually the sandworms from this vantage point.
Well, that's his mouth. And it's a shame that you said that because the sandworms only have 1.5 minutes of screen time in this movie, despite being pivotal to Dune. They'll have a much more significant role in the sequel.
It's the Jaws theory.
Yeah, that's true too. Jaws theory is that the fear of the shark is much better than actually seeing it, so that's why they cut a lot of the...
But I mean, I'm sure that it was a similar reason. They have to be completely done out of CGI, which is really expensive. It's a great way to cut costs. It's the same basic thing that, Spielberg didn't have the money to make a really epic looking shark. So he was like, oh, we'll just not really show it.
Yeah. So yeah, she's here to mitigate, to evaluate what the Harkonnens left them, and she's judging that was just a mechanical failure and not sabotage. Because she's saying that the desert will rip apart machines and it also will rip apart people.
I mean, that makes sense. There is sand especially sand that gets blown around by wind, is extremely abrasive. It's like your phone.
Hmm?
If you scratch your phone with like a key, you're fine, but like a little bit of grit gets on it and it just like scratches it to heck.
Well, it's a big thing too with the storms that go across this planet. They're said to go at 700, 800 kilometers, which
Yeah, it's effectively just sandpaper.
yeah. Or he was just really high.
Right? His eyes were closed.
So I really don't like how you see more of Zendaya in visions than you actually see her on screen throughout this movie. And there's there's your filter.
No, that's not a
Well,
foam grain filter.
tint, I mean, sorry.
It's a tint. I'm extremely perplexed why, like, of all the things, he doesn't have eye protection during a sandstorm.
Well, they haven't had a sandstorm yet.
I mean, sand's going on. Like, he has no eye protection. There's all this sand going around. It's like the first thing you would think you would need.
Well, he also wasn't wearing his full protection for his face.
Correct, because he's a moron.
I'm pretty sure that the full gear does have goggles. Now somebody's getting uncomfortable.
He's not going to leave until I leave. You know that.
That's fair. He's the laziest dog. Blood is not what you want to see in a vision.
True.
It's really not a helpful vision.
Okay.
They must have goggles in the book so they can drink their tears.
Some things are crystal clear. I can feel it. Either it's crystal clear or you can feel it. Those things are mutually exclusive.
So he's about to have a little sister because he can see the future. And so Lucis Secundus, I'm trying to remember if that's the I don't remember if this is the prison planet or not, but this is where the Sardaukar, which are the Emperor's elite fighting force, are trained. And so this is them preparing for battle.
The fact that they're using throat singing is not lost on me here. In this context, I wonder if that was the best choice. It feels a little traumatically appropriative.
I don't have the actual fact here, but I think I read that the same person who created the languages in George R. R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire, the same person who created the various languages here.
At what point do those people have to like reduce, reuse, and recycle those things? Like how many languages can you really create before you're like out of ideas?
I mean, there were what 3 or 4 different unique languages in that show alone that all stood out. Hey, bro. because he knows what's coming. Now, going back to the bull imagery, one of the really cool things in the extended universe is that the great houses originally came from Earth, which explains a lot of the Latin terms like Bene Gesserit, Name Well Done, or the name Gaius, or the Scandinavian word for the Landsgrad, which is the meeting of the great houses. And there's a couple of other things. So,
are you going to read the rest of the series?
Oh, Ben, no, I'm not. Not planning on it.
I didn't think
Dune itself is pretty rough. We'll see. I won't ever say never, but I'm not planning on it soon.
Says not likely.
I have a lot of other books that I want to read first. I will say that. And the in terms of the Atreides family, they have their roots in Earth's Greece, which was a Minoan-based civilization, which is where a lot of those bull creatures and minotaurs come from.
Also, love it when a man in a scene goes to some random woman who's not his wife and goes, "I should have married you."
Oh, I missed that entirely.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it.
Is that what Leda said?
Yeah.
Oh no, that what? So it's sorry, that's something you don't know. Lady Jessica is not his wife. She's just the mother of his child. He doesn't have a wife. They're not married.
Oh.
So in theory,
why did he say it as like, I should have married you? Is he married to someone else?
No, he's not married to someone else. So he should have married her, but he kind of left it open. I'm assuming so that he could marry somebody from another great house for, house unity or whatever. But he loves Lady Jessica. She's the mother of his child. They just aren't married.
The way that he said it was literally, I should have married you. Not, I should have married you.
That's delivery.
Well, I'm aware. That's what I'm harping on.
And yeah. They, again, in the extended universe, they trace their lineage back to the great king Atreus, which is a character mentioned in the Greek Iliad, and that's where the surname Atreides comes from. So it literally means son of Atreus. Oh, the second one's much shorter, and I may try it one day. Okay, that's good to know. Martin, we can do a joint book reading. I would be more than happy to do that with you. And yeah, his shield failed because it doesn't handle things that move slowly or with enough force it can eventually protrude into the shield. And so now you're going to find out who the betrayer is, because it's the Doctor. There's a lot more behind it, where he's Imperial trained, so he cannot betray the Atreides, but there are a couple of loopholes, which we will see very shortly. And this was, when I was originally planning to do one break, this is at the halfway point, which obviously would not be a good place to stop at because this battle will last for a while. And so I decided to break it up into two pauses instead of just the one. So this is really cool effects. You can see how the shields delay artillery fire from making contact.
I mean, it's also nice to have, especially in like a sci-fi show or movie, to have shields that are not impenetrable, because that intrinsically does not make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
There are no such thing as infallible shields.
Yeah, and you can see, well, the explosions outside, well, that one it didn't. But for the other ship, it did kind of deflect the blast, which is pretty cool. And so unfortunately they were surprise attacked. And I have a lot of comments on this scene. I'm going to say most of them for scripting the book, but essentially we've been told that the Atreides fighting force is the one of the best in the universe, and I know they were caught off guard, but they are completely. I mean, their entire air force is destroyed, and now they're going at people with swords.
I'll admit it's rather surprising that, quote unquote an elite squad is this unprepared for an unanticipated attack.
Right.
Especially
when they kind
a
of
military battalion
assumed.
of any variety should be running drills based on an attack and have a protocol.
Exactly. And I will say it gets worse in their tactics, because right now they're all in kind of disarray. So I wouldn't want them to be full up to fighting force, but to lose this badly immediately when they know that they're in enemy territory really doesn't feel like they are in actuality the elite force that they are supposed to be.
Also, why are so many of their critical infrastructure vehicles in the open? That makes no sense from a
that was all
defensive
their airships. But again, you're right.
I mean, and hangars exist for a reason.
And this is bad tactics right here by the Atreides, because they have a thin line of defenders and they are about to get pincered.
Yeah,
and going back to your point about being
their
out
home territory, it's such bad planning.
They would have been able to hold the Harkonnens on those stairs, but they shouldn't have been on those stairs in the first place. They should have been in the hallways where they have cover from above and it's harder to infiltrate.
Yeah, why are they doing a melee offensive when theoretically they've got distance weapons of some variety?
So there's a big thing about how he couldn't, but that's Dr. Yue, and he couldn't betray them because he has Imperial training. So he is sworn to his family. He whoever he's sworn to, he cannot betray them no matter what. And so this is the loophole where he's trying to hurt the Harkonnens by giving them what they want. So he is betraying his family, the family he's sworn to, but he's doing it to hurt the Harkonnens, and that's the one loophole that gets around it. And the book really does a great job of expanding on who the traitor is and why they're doing it and why everyone else thinks it's somebody else. And the movie doesn't quite go into that much detail. Because Dr. Yue wasn't in a whole lot of scenes before this, so you don't really understand who he's doing it, why he's doing it, why it's so important.
Ouch. So they set those palm trees on fire and each of them takes, what was it? The water of 5 men? That's a slap in the face.
No, it's good because it means that they don't need to use that water anymore.
It's a symbolic destruction of something that is precious,
right?
That they are destroying, that has already used a ton of sunk cost precious resources.
True. Yeah. You can see how individual, well-known fighters within the Atreides army are fantastically powerful. And yet the rest of the army loses pretty handily. And this is why they should have been the Atreides.
Also note that the well-known fighters are, for some reason, fighting on their own instead of leading the other people.
Because he was going to rescue Paul. His sole purpose was to find the Duke's children.
It is, again, poor protocol, poor planning, and a bad idea to go by yourself to save someone that you're trying to rescue.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You should take more than one person with you.
Okay, we got 20 more minutes before we take a break. This is actually really cool. It closes one of the holes for the plot whole of why they're keeping them alive, even though they want to kill them, because they need to be able to speak honestly under the scrutiny of a truthsayer. So they didn't harm them. They left them in the desert, and they can say, I didn't physically harm them or anything like that. They can choose their words carefully so that they aren't lying if they are ever under scrutiny.
Lie by omission is still a lie.
All right.
We all know
Well, take
that.
care, Nia. It was great. And thank you so much for you joining us this morning. I really can't wait to talk to you about this when it's our turn to give our critiques on this movie and to show how it compared to the book. So I'll be careful not to say too many details about that and just comment on what I'm watching here. So see you in a few weeks. And
You'll
also
notice he didn't go back and join a battalion. He again is fighting by himself.
well, he needed to find where Paul went. His sole purpose is to now find and save Paul.
Which he is again doing by himself.
Oh, no. His sole purpose is to cause chaos. And the artillery hit the one copter. They're trying to take him out. This is actually really cool. He's a good enough pilot to trick them into creating a smoke screen. And there's your narrow hangars where they should have been kept so that they weren't hit from above.
Empty hangars. These hangars are empty. I can see now why they fell so quickly, because they do not have proper military protocols. Just incompetence all over the place.
And yet that's why I don't like that we are told that they are the greatest fighting force in the universe, and then that happens. Oh, and by the way, that's the Dr. Yue sign. He had it on his forehead. So that indicates that he is trying to help them. Oh, yes. Thank you, Barrett. Hey, great afternoon to you. It's not morning anymore. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. He's leaving a like, and we'll catch the replay after he finally watches the new movie. Yes, this is a fun movie. Really quickly, question: did you ever see the 1984 version? I don't know. I've been asking everyone. I'm curious who has seen it, what backgrounds they have in terms of Dune. So, read the book, seen 1984 version of it.
They're really losing their ability to say they didn't kill anybody if they throw him off a plane.
No, because they landed.
They're in the air.
They're hovering. So the important thing is that guy is deaf, so the voice, the kind of like the Force in Star Wars, but the voice wouldn't work on him. So they need to be careful in who they killed, which is a good thing why they were able to get one guy to kill the deaf guy first and then take over from there.
Does she have the voice because she's Bene Gesserit, or for another reason?
That is a good question. I think it's a Bene Gesserit skill.
But not all of them have it?
Not all of them have it. And I think people outside of the Bene Gesserit can use the voice.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it originates with the Bene Gesserit. See, they weren't that high up. You could have easily survived.
We've discussed this before. Your ideas about surviving falls and the damage that would be done seem optimistic at best to me.
Sand is not the hardest surface to land on.
You think that you could survive jumping
a 10-foot drop?
You think that you'd be fine jumping off like the first story of our house onto concrete, and I told you you'd probably break both your legs.
I I think I could land right so that I wouldn't necessarily break both my legs. Yeah, sometimes I do go up on my roof to try and clear the gutters, do all those other things, and I have routinely made the comment that I think if I need to, I can always jump off and not break both my legs. Haven't tested it, don't want to, but that is what we're talking about here.
By the way, that is his response when I tell him to, and literally all I say is, be careful. His response to me is, I could jump off the house and be fine.
I don't say fine. I said I could jump off and be okay.
You too warm?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of like the Force in Star Wars. It's almost as if George Lucas read Dune going into Star Wars. Thank you, Martin. And yes, I do agree there's not enough love for the early 2000s TV version of Dune. I thought that was Children of Dune, though. So isn't that more extended universe, or is that the retelling of this? Also, it's kind of uncomfortable to watch a naked man just...
Why is he naked?
Why not? Oh, they had to make sure he didn't have any weapons. That's kind of a spoiler. I mean, they said in the movie, but they claim that the Harkonnens and the Atreides are more linked up than you would think. I don't know that they're supposed to be direct cousins, so it might be extended cousins. Ben jumps off things that'll get you over 100 subs. I can't wait to watch. No, I'd rather not.
Please don't do that.
I'd rather not get 100 subs by breaking my legs. That seems like less than fun. Less than fun day.
Yeah, seriously.
That is really bad language.
Yeah.
Deliver my wife from her agony is terrible language when you know that you have to go through Truthsayers, because you can clearly see how they're getting around that. Oh, cool. So the 2000s TV version of Dune merged the first book and then the later books, so I might check it out. I think I will check it out. I'm interested now. You can read Miranda's crawling to write. Oh, that's bad.
So they're gonna kill him.
Spoilers. Yeah. But he knew, so in his defense, he assumed that she was dead, but he hoped for the best. And he knew that he would be killed right here. So the entire thing is to get the Duke in that position. So you'll see what's about to happen. And he gave supplies to Paul, which includes the ducal ring. See, concubine. So his concubine's
Fair
dead.
enough.
He was not married.
I do find it really entertaining when people are like, your bloodline will end like as a child free by choice person. Like it makes me chuckle so much because I'm like, okay.
See, this is really dumb. So he whispered to get him closer, which is what he wants, because he remembers.
I remember what the doctor
I'm
gave
saying
him.
that the Duke remembers what he needs to do. And because the Duke Harkonnen isn't an idiot, he put up his shields, which allowed him to defend himself. And he can also hover. So in the 1984 version, he sees the smoke coming out and he boots up to the ceiling where the air is thinner, I guess. So the gas is denser, so it would sink. I don't know. They don't go into what the gas is or how it functions.
I mean, it probably only has like a limited range.
It kills everyone else in the room. The only reason why he survived is because he went up the ceiling. But in here, I don't think it shows why he died. All right, so we're about 10 minutes away from the next break. Just try and keep an eye on that. Oh, and he died in the same room as the bullhead, which killed his grandfather, which killed
his
Leto's
father.
father. And because the Duke showed that he cared more about the people than the spice, that got her on the Atreides side. So now she's helping Paul and his mother escape. Because you realize that the Atreides are good people and the Harkonnens are there to
mean, that's probably the most compelling part of like the interaction with the people, because it's the thing,
right? Kinds.
Well, it's the things that makes the most sense, even now in human behavior. People who take care of other people, even at the expense of themselves, always inspire more loyalty than ruling by fear. That's always been true.
Yeah. Because now they're starting to realize how fully they were betrayed. And now the gas has been dispersed. You can see that everyone died. And this was actually a pretty good hit, even though the Duke survived. Spoiler alert, you're about to see. Because they took out his Mentat, which is those human computers, the Mentat Piter.
Data,
yes. So, okay, so cool. So he was up by the ceiling, which is how he survived.
it's a really good thing he learned all that stuff about how to survive in the desert in that one scene.
And there's spice in the air, so he's about to get high.
That's why everyone's fighting over this planet. Just live high, die high.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, this isn't a time skip. He's hallucinating in the future. Which, again, is a disappointment for this movie, as Zendaya shows up more in visions than she does in the runtime.
Oh, I just assumed that he was hallucinating because he's been watching Euphoria.
And you can see what looks like the Sardaukar, so the people in white. I guess they're all in white. Can't really tell who's who, but the people in the paler white, I think, are supposed to be the Sardaukar, and the people in the golder white are supposed to be the Fremen. And there's a sandworm in the background defending. Yeah, so the Fremen are in the golder white as opposed to the Sardaukar, who are in the white. So Paul has seen himself lead Fremen against the Emperor.
I just don't understand why he's crying about it.
Or why he's drooling.
No, I'm not attempting to be difficult. I mean, I don't understand the emotions he's attempting to portray here. They don't make sense in the visions we're being shown.
It's an acting choice. So this is interesting because it shows people rising up all across the universe. And what looks like Caladan? Question mark. Rufus.
They mean this scene to be emotional, and I don't think it really lands.
It would land more if, again, Dune is so dense that we needed to do more character building, more world building in ways that aren't just spoon feeding us everything.
Yeah. We really, the emotional beats here you don't have the emotional beats to land. There's nothing to land on it.
Which kind of makes sense too, because the whole thing in the book, at least, is that he's becoming more of a role than a person. And so he's kind of giving up his emotions.
I can tell Rufus is unhappy to be down here, but he won't leave because I'm down
You're
here.
Yeah, because he's lazy and uncomfortable and he wants to be upstairs on his other bed. But he wants to follow you.
You could scooch over and there would be more room for him.
How much more room does he need?
The whole couch. You not comfy? No. That's his pee.
No, we actually saw the tank collecting it. It was kind of cool.
I'm just joking.
But it would be their sweat and tears. Did the exposition holograms at the start work for you?
What's that? I know the sand compactor, but is that just a light?
Yeah.
Okay.
So going back to all those tools that he
something. Did they CGI desert animals for reals?
This is important.
No, did they?
Yes, they did.
Oh my god! They could have just filmed.
No, that's the Mob Deep.
There are literally like rodents that live in the desert that look exactly like that they could have just filmed.
They also wanted to show the water collecting on its ears.
It was recycling its own water, but. Yeah.
And unfortunately, they won't go into the importance of the Mob Deep here in this movie. So that's something to look forward to in the sequel. And we are getting close to the point that I had set up as... Yeah, so 1:40:04. So basically at the end of the scene, when they switch to the next scene is when we pause for another 5-minute break.
Try like sand.
All right, so we're going to pause right here at 1:40:04, and we'll take a 5-minute break or to just chat and discuss this movie. So that was the huge climax where the Atreides house fell and were all but annihilated. In this version, as we commented, they did not show themselves to be the supreme fighting force of the universe.
I mean, we're living in 2022 and I have a cursory understanding of military strategy and defense, and they don't even attempt like basic defensive maneuvers in the way that they structure their bases, the way that they have a battalion and command them, the protocols and response. Like they just run right into battle. They don't even like take a beat, let them gain ground, take a beat, and organize yourselves.
For what's worth, there were two things that they mentioned. Three things, I guess. The shields were down, which obviously allowed them to infiltrate. And the secondary thing was that the comms were down. So they weren't able to organize as best they could because they couldn't communicate, which makes sense.
That's fine.
But there are still like leaders within units that then like there should be pockets of people.
Any basic military installation would not rely on a single defensive point like a shield. That's just foolish.
Right.
It's just foolish. I mean, physical barriers will always be helpful. And any military installation knows that.
And I know I said that I wouldn't go too far into the differences between the book and the movie because I want to save that for scripting the book. But I will say a little bit in that the book had a much more even match. So they were caught off guard, and that's fair. The shield, they weren't expecting the shields to be down. They had some issues there. And so they defended themselves well. They were holding themselves even, and they regrouped in caves nearby. And the cool thing about that is that the Harkonnens then countered, and they blew up the cave wall, so the people were then trapped inside the caves.
That makes dramatically more sense from a defensive standpoint as to why you would lose on your home turf during a surprise attack. Like, that means that they have a protocol, they're following something, they have, a backup protocol if comms are down. That's sort of like, you get screwed because they're able to breach your defenses. This was not that.
They didn't stand on stairs, fight downward, and then not realize that somebody snuck behind them.
And fighting melee instead of attempting to use ranged weapons.
They don't. So that's a big thing. They don't actually have ranged weapons. They have the huge guns on the ship. But aside from that, they didn't do a good job showing it here.
They did not.
Essentially, there aren't ranged weapons.
Even the way that it was shot made it difficult to understand really what was happening. I mean...
You mean they had the Game of Thrones Winterfell episode?
Oh my god. It was the framing, the way that it was done, the popping back and forth was just done in a nonsensical manner. I don't know. I had a lot of issues with that scene.
I gotcha. I do apologize. It looks like I'm a little bit blurry because everything's focusing on the microphone instead of us. Although it looks kind of cleaner in the version there, so it might just be the quality's down. Okay, that's fine. Because it looks clean in that video, because we were coming in much better visually in what I'm looking at in StreamYard. So hopefully in the...
If you have your resolution bumped, that it's clear.
Yeah. Okay. So we are going to continue, and there is about just under an hour left. So this is the final third of Dune 2021.
So you're saying is it's the final countdown?
No, I'm not saying that. Yeah, we're slowly
bringing everything down on us.
I blame Rufus.
No, it's not his fault. They really should have chosen anything other than you cross swords with someone and you'll know it.
There, Martin. There you go. There's your dirty adult humor. Uh-oh. Oh. Because the storm is coming. So you can see the Fremen preparing for it, although you don't know who these Fremen are.
No.
So you don't really have any context for what they're doing.
I mean, you know that they live on this planet and have for some time, that they know how to deal with things. They've got tech and, they understand the planet.
And now they're explaining where they are.
I will say, every time I see something like a sandstorm, I am fully aware that I'm woefully unprepared to deal with that.
So the Fremen also waste water on plants.
It depends whether it's wasted or not. Do you consider research and investigation waste?
Fair enough.
Plants are a way to sustain life. If you can recycle the water, is it a waste?
Uh-oh.
More gorgeous scenery. This really is like scenery pornography.
Bless you.
Thank you. Hi, sweetie.
Hey, Rufus.
He's trying to stretch out. Hi, baby.
Keep in mind, he's a 15-year-old child at this point. Or at least he's supposed to be in the scene.
Oh my god. Okay, the white male confidence just like oozing out of this mediocre boy.
Again, he can see the future. He's seen what's coming.
He literally was just like, I'd be a great emperor. I'd be so good at it. You have to realize how that sounds.
And so this is why the Fremen are much better than the Atreides, because they recognize they recognize when somebody's coming from above. So even though Sardaukar are these elite warriors, the Fremen are prepared for them.
Because they have protocols in place and basic defensive maneuvers.
But yeah, there is a lot of uncomfortable white savior complexes with Atreides, with Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica.
Really thinking they know better than the Fremen that are not dead at the hands of this invading legions. And I'm sure it's the source material and the time it was written, but like, woof.
Oh, I agree. Especially when you realize that the Fremen were based off largely Middle Eastern populations. And there's a large mix of Muslim.
They literally pick and chose not just Middle Eastern populations, but cherry-picked random indigenous populations from across the world and their practices and the way that they look and what they do.
Yeah.
And then just combined it into this amalgam of effectively like non-white people.
And this movie does a better job of that, where the Fremen aren't all white. Although, unfortunately, the leading members of the Atreides family are.
Right.
Weird that you can lock the door from the outside. Oh. Don't really understand how this setting works out. So it does. They say they can lock the door from the outside. You can lock the door from the outside.
I mean, I'll hand it to Jason Momoa. I actually appreciate him having like the confidence to just be like, I'll handle this by myself.
He's not. He's just, again, he's doing everything to save Paul Atreides and his mother, Lady Jessica. That's why he abandoned the other units in combat. That's why he's still fighting with a knife through his chest. Now, what they do here is pretty dumb. They could easily jump over that or work around that. You can see where it is. It's not going to jump to a different point. So they can go where they need to go without... Now that is pretty badass. He pulled the sword out of his chest and is using it to kill them. Like, they didn't need to wait for him to do that, though. They could have just gone under the beam of light.
Okay, literally, as we're watching this and he's doing badass stuff, there's a rugby player that just, like, took his forearm and rammed it into someone's face, and it's getting under review to see if he gets a red card.
Oof.
Yeah, I know. They keep replaying it from different angles.
Yeah, that's a forearm to the face.
That's a red card offense.
Let's see here. Has anyone asked Books by Adrian if he wants to do an on this thing? Ooh, he loves Dune. Oh. I will ask him about scripting the book if he wants to do that. I should have pinged him about this. That would have been fun.
By the way, no card was awarded. Just a talking to.
A stern talking
A stern talking to. From Wayne Barnes, who red carded the captain of the Welsh team in the Rugby World Cup in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm still bitter about that.
That was what, 4 years ago?
That was like 8 years ago. I will never never not be bitter about that. Yes, hello. Rufus is not enjoying this.
Scratch his ear. See if he'll purr for the. Hey, Rue. Oh, you spoiled dog in your tortilla blanket.
Yeah. You need more room to stretch out, baby.
At this point, I don't think we've seen Paul actually pilot the Thopter before.
We have not.
He is going strictly off of being the...
He's clicking a lot of buttons like he knows what he's doing.
Well, what can I say? The drug, or the spice is one hell of a drug.
Seriously.
Allows him to see the future and know how to pilot. He knows Kung Fu, too.
He thinks he knows Kung Fu.
Because the Matrix. He knows Kung Fu.
I'm aware of what you're doing. I mean, this movie is just proof that a mediocre white teen can do anything they assume they should be able to do. Like pilot a helicopter. What could go wrong?
So that's a thumper, which is used to draw the
worms.
The worms, because it's a steady rhythmic motion.
I got you.
Well, I don't know if they actually showed what a thumper is.
No, but I mean, you get.
And that's kinds.
They say that they're attracted to the rhythmic motion.
She's playing to make her escape. And as a Fremen, we haven't seen that before, but they are capable of riding the sandworms.
Uh-oh.
And it's actually kind of cool because it showed that water shot out because they pierced the still suit. Although that is kind of dumb because they killed her, but the sandworm still is coming. Shai-Hulud is the name of the worms. And so even though they're away from the thumper, she still is making that rhythmic beating. So it's pretty cool. Everyone is going to die here.
So the Fremen, like, revere the worms?
Yes.
I feel like that's the first we've heard of that.
I think it's gone back and forth. I think they've hinted at it, but I don't think they've outright said that Shai-Hulud are the worms.
Fair enough. It's the first time I'm hearing of it, is my point.
Well, we've also been talking through a lot of the movie. So I don't honestly remember whether or not that was... Uh-oh. So remember that storm that was hours away? They're heading right for it.
Yeah.
And there's ships behind them.
So he's going to just fly right into that sandstorm like he knows what he's doing?
In his defense, first of all, he's seen the future. Second of all, he knows that when you get to a certain altitude within, that the sand is much less. He was outright told that once you get to a certain point, certain height, that the sand is not going to damage the copter. This is pretty cool. This was really smart of him to do. It's what he needed. It was a desperation move. And you can see the sand starting to gum up the wings.
Well, I mean, like we've discussed, sand is extremely abrasive.
And it helps that he's getting high at the moment of
Yeah, seriously. His mother is barely holding it together.
So this is a vision of the future.
Oh, it's a good thing he's having visions of the future while he's flying a plane.
And as you... Because he knows that the best thing to do is just let the storm take him. Although you see how the copter is spinning around, you will notice that them in the cockpit aren't like moving in a circle. Like they aren't feeling the centrifugal forces.
Yeah.
They're just basically sitting straight. They aren't even trying to do the Star Trek thing of like leaning. And this is Baron Harkonnen, who hasn't fully healed from the killer gas that Duke Leto unleashed.
Well, in true rich guy fashion, he is healing in a vat of oil. That's what we call an unconfirmed kill. I don't really think he's fond of those.
Again, 7 hours of makeup for these scenes.
To then get in a vat of what looks like motor oil.
Hey, Brew. Oh.
Hi, Papa.
Seems like the thing that you don't want to have happen. But yeah, there is some weird editing where they could have stayed with this scene and then showed us later.
Yeah.
So again, they are spinning around in a circle, in a downward spiraling circle, and they are perfectly center in the ships.
And I mean, there's not enough restraints for them not to be moving.
Or like leaning to one direction.
Yeah.
And what they were told was that the higher up they go, the less dense the sand is, except that they're now
makes sense.
Except they're now much further down than where they were, and he's sort of just going through and powering through. So they again start off low, and then they sort of power up to high. They're almost out of fuel. And now he's going to try and start up the wings again because they're at a less dense place. That's not what you want to have happen. So now he's just going to try and glide to a nice, easy, and oh crap.
It kind of looks like a mechanical dragonfly.
Yeah.
It took me a while to pin that down, but that's what it looks like.
Yep. That's what this was intended to do. The book doesn't go into quite as much description. Definitely feels more organic than machine. So it's cool that they did dragonfly.
I mean, it moves like a dragonfly.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Well, the best laid plans. Again, they are now spinning. Okay, so at least their hair is going upside down, but they're
rotating and their bodies are not moving with the force at all.
Right. We'll make it to the rocks. Uh-oh. That seemed like a
really
rhythmic.
hard to have sympathy for him. Like, it's really hard to have sympathy for him. You know that, right?
I agree.
He is not a sympathetic character. Not in this movie.
I think he does better in the books, but he is less sympathetic in the books because he kind of detracts himself from emotions. But yeah, here he is just a whiny little child.
I mean, he's Timothy Chalamet. That feels like on brand. I know that lots of women and girls are obsessed with Timothy Chalamet. I don't fully understand it. It could just be that he's too young for me to even consider him a romantic lead of any variety, but
I mean, he's also playing him younger, and that doesn't help the case.
it does not help his case.
And he's playing more mature. So in the book, in the other movie, Paul has more agency. Paul has more, not control, but not opinions, but agency is the best word I can think of.
Okay.
So Paul acts more mature than he is, whereas here he's purposely trying to be more immature. And according to Patrick Stewart, at least in the 1984 version, the still suits that he had to wear were the least comfortable clothing he's ever put on. And
I'm going to raise that with wear an underwire bra for an entire day and then get back to me.
And one of the things that I showed us earlier, I think in one of the info dumps, was what they're going to do now, which is walking in an unsteady pattern. I think. I'm trying to remember. Uh-oh. Because he's starting to remember from his visions where the seats are, which are where the Fremen live. She's worried about her unborn child.
I mean, maybe it also looked like she was like grabbing her stomach like she might be bleeding internally because she went like for where her kidneys are.
Yeah. Remains unclear.
Also, she looks shell-shocked, like she is woefully unprepared to deal with any of this, but her 15-year-old child's totally okay.
He's seen the future, and he's high right now.
He's high right now. There you go. He's high. Apparently, she's not high.
So again. Because the Muad'Dib. Hey, Rue. Oh.
Hi, Daddy.
Rufus, you would not survive in a desert. You barely survive outside for an hour.
He would find desert vomit and be fine. He would find one lady in the desert and she would take him in.
Yeah, our dog does not respect men, but adores women.
He does not respect your authority at all.
And it's not just me. He doesn't respect any men.
He does not. No men have authority for Rufus. He only listens to ladies.
I can't.
I can't either. There's no green in that shot at all. How does his mother know nothing? Okay, so she's Bene Gesserit. Aside from the fact that she can like command people with her voice, what else does that mean? Other than she can birth someone who's really important, but only if they're a boy.
No, so she was supposed to birth a girl who would have also been important. But the fact that she birthed the boy is supposed to be this savior.
Oh, she really should have fixed that in her uterus by turning him into a girl.
You laugh, but that's what the Bene Gesserit can. She had a choice, and Duke Leto wanted his son in the air.
That was not part of this movie at
Oh, that is
all.
not in this movie at all. I agree.
So basically, they made it sound like you should have aborted him as soon as you found out it was a boy. How dare you have that boy? That's how that came across in this movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which, like, brutal.
I would argue that the sand dance that they're doing is still somewhat rhythmic.
Also from a modern gender perspective, if your child has a gender or whatever that they're, assigned, and you decide I'm going to change it, they might just come out of the womb and be like, no.
Well, much later than out of the womb, but yeah.
I mean, you take my point.
Yeah. They might decide not to do. I would argue that what they're doing right now is, one, not the sand dance, because they were definitely just walking normal, and two, because the sand dance is hard, but what they're doing is still rhythmic. Like they're doing the sand dance badly, I guess, which kind of makes sense because they're attracting the.
Maybe clanging 3 times in a row was a bad idea. Literally, all he did was exactly what you're not supposed to do. He went boom, boom, boom. That is rhythmic. Also, to this point, the hubris of thinking you can outrun the sandworm.
They don't have a choice. And all they have, for what it's worth, the sandworm, this does a very bad job of showing distance. But they were...
It really does.
I mean, the choices are basically just give up and die or try and run to the rocks, which they could see. So I'm fully okay with them to run.
Okay, we're now in a part of the movie where they filmed it and it's dark and it's impossible to see.
So the sandworm's reared up its head and it's staring at him.
I see it, but this
was in the advertisement here. It would look a lot better if we didn't have giant lights shining in our eyes.
That's true.
But he's staring into the open mouth of a sandworm. And as he's
a gaping maw, as it were.
As he's on solid ground, it can't quite get him. Although you would think that the sandworm could just reach forward and scoop him up, but it doesn't know where he is because he's on solid ground.
Anytime I use the phrase gaping maw, I'm reminded of that Parks and Rec episode where Patton Oswalt talks about
Star
Wars, and he's like, we open on the gaping maw of the Sarlacc pit.
Well, the Sarlaccs, allegedly, I don't know if it's confirmed or otherwise, they have a lot in common with the sandworms.
He took a lot from this,
all right,
from Dune.
Take care, Richard. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy your dinner. I hope it's something delicious.
It took me a second to remember that he is in the UK, and I was like, it is 2:18.
Richard likes having really early dinners. But yeah, again, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I really appreciate you coming in and commenting and having fun with us discussing this adaptation of a book. Oh, isn't Star Wars the one with the little wizard boy?
I did not know what midichlorians are because I was cool in high school.
Uh-oh, because there's Fremen here.
They were trying to find the Fremen.
And it's Javier Bardem lounging on a...
Is Javier Bardem speaking like Javier Bardem, for one thing?
Oh, Richard, don't tell me that. We have a whole discussion about how pineapple pizza is an abomination, and
as an Italian American, I concur. Pineapple pizza is an abomination.
But I hope you enjoy, and you can eat all the world's pineapple pizzas so that we don't have to.
Exactly.
Because that's one of the guys he's been seeing in his visions.
Okay, I would argue that this is like Harry Potter. Whoever you choose to be the one is the one. If Harry Potter wasn't the one, it would have been Neville Longbottom. Harsh.
They're Fremen. They are harsh. If they're letting somebody in, every person they let in is potentially more water they have to spend. So I do understand that.
Unless you take out one of the Fremen, then it's an equal amount of water.
Well, uh-oh. Because Lady Jessica now has Stilgar by the throat. Okay, so that's what else the Bene Gesserit's going to do. They can fight.
Anyone can fight if they're trained.
Well, Bene Gesserits are trained to fight. Although
I'm intrigued by what else she can do as a quote-unquote weirding woman, which I assume is just another way of saying witch.
Yeah. So we have the voice, which allows her to control other people.
Fighting, which is just training. That's just training. That's not special powers.
I think she can see visions of the future, but I'm not quite sure.
So far, only her son has seen visions of the future when he's high.
Well, that's the thing, is that everyone else can kind of see visions of the future. Uh-oh. Because it's her, the girl from his dreams.
Wow, MJ's really changed her look.
Trying to think. I don't remember if she filmed No Way Home first and then this, or the order of it.
Like the first?
No, the No Way Home, the last one, the most recent Spider-Man.
Oh, I don't know.
Because this was filmed.
She was MJ in all of them.
Yeah, she was MJ in all of them, but I'm trying to figure out the order of when these were filmed.
No, I don't know.
Because this was ready to go in November 2020, and uh-oh. So the guy whose only thing that we know about him is that he saw him in the visions.
Oh, God.
Well. So again, this is this dramatic moment in the movie. We are almost at the end. And the only thing that we know about that guy is that we saw him in visions where he was about to help Paul do the hook thing with the sandworm, and like one other point where he's trying to help out Paul.
And now she's the leader of this group.
No, she's not the leader, but she questioned his leadership by besting him in battle, so he's trying to fight her for... And now he's getting high and seeing visions of the future of how he loses. He must die. I don't know who's narrating this either.
I don't know.
Well, because it's part of his vision, but I don't know whose voice that would be.
It's one of the Fremen.
It might be the... No, it might be the original woman who put his hand in the box.
No, I don't know. It's hard to tell because they're not,
speaking normally.
no, but they're also not like very well known voices for me to pinpoint.
But yeah, so Lady Jessica is not the leader, but she questioned the leader's authority. So this guy's trying to wrest it back with Lamas.
It's confusing because she bested him in battle, and he was like, "Oh, the strongest leads."
Yeah, so he's questioning Stilgar's decision to let them come with. He's questioning Stilgar, and in doing so, he's questioning the one who bested him, which is Lady Jessica, and he doesn't. And Stilgar said that Lady Jessica can't fight.
From a person just watching the movie and not reading the book, it's super confusing as to what just happened.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of thoughts on that, which I'm saving for scripting the book. Because, short answer, this should have been saved. Everything that's happening now should have been saved for the sequel. Because right now he's having a battle with somebody who we don't know, don't care about. Somebody who he's not tied to, except for what he's seen in the visions. So from a storytelling standpoint, it doesn't make sense that the movie is continuing from here on. There was an excellent point for it to stop, and I'll mention that when I discuss it further with Nia and Natalie and Morgan. But there was a perfect point to stop this that would have made sense for both the book, for the story that was being told. The one exception is that there's all these visions of the future, which they could have drastically reduced and made this a better movie for doing so.
You either need to have clear visions or less of them. You can't really do this amorphous in-between deal.
I agree. And the visions in the 1984 version were extremely confusing, but they were a lot shorter. Whereas here it's like
a lot more tolerable.
Agreed. And I know I'm doing a lot of comparisons to 1984, even though I know that 1984 did not age well, and I will happily admit that. But the story it told,
I think there's a lot of flaws in the source material in terms of the time and when it was created.
Right, but that was magnified in the 80s.
True. I mean, 1984, you wind up having something that's 38 years old. Society has changed a lot.
Hey, Rudy-Roo.
You that uncomfy? Yeah.
Rufus.
You want to stretch out a little bit.
Okay. Yep. Moving on over. Dog is taking it more to the couch. You can tell who
how's that baby?
Who rules in our household?
Me.
No, I'd argue that Rufus does.
There we go.
All that to just turn around.
Feel better, honey. Feels like Paul's making a lot of mistakes today.
Yeah, but he learned from the vision. Also, the vision showed him in sunlight, which they are not under right now. So vision's kind of wrong.
Well, he's also changing based on what he sees.
Even so, they are completely in shadow. So unless this battle goes for like an hour, I will say this. It was a really cool thing. So what Lamas did, the guy he just killed, was switch. He went forward and he switched his knife hand to go in for the kill, which would have been a surprise move. And that would have been a perfect thing in the books. Chani is the one who tells Paul that that's what Lamas does when he fights. But here he just sort of saw it in a vision. So it was something that could have given her a lot actual agency in this movie, short of being someone in visions.
Yeah.
And it would have been something cool to note.
It would also have given her more than like one speaking line.
But hey, she would have taken Paul out if he threatened the Stilgar. But my point being that I don't like a lot of the way that a lot of things this movie does, a lot of the choices that they make.
They really attempt to make it so that like the only person with agency in this movie is Paul.
Which is annoying because he doesn't actually have agency. He's basically just fulfilling a role that he's seen in the future.
I think that they should have changed it to take away a fair amount of it, to give it to other people.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of choices that they made that could have done that better.
I mean, for one thing, they could have given Zendaya, Chani actual lines instead of just intense glares. I mean, she's good at them, don't get me wrong. She's a very capable actress, but they really bungled that.
And going back to agency, I don't know why Lady Jessica makes that move to try and get him off world.
I mean, oh my god, having him be like, my road leads into the desert. Lady Jessica's supposed to be smart, right? She's supposed to be an intelligent person.
And brilliant
tactician. She should
tactician.
know that the safest place for Paul right now is exactly where he is, because the people that want him dead think he's dead.
Technically, getting him off world and getting him to a planet that's not under Imperial, so getting him to the outer worlds where rejected families go,
okay, but you don't smuggle someone off world when they're presumed dead that day. You give time for the heat to die down.
Oh, I agree. And wait for it, because I think this is
So they made the mom stupid.
Yes.
And they made Zendaya more or less mute.
Yeah.
And the only person who's driving this movie is Timothée Chalamet, and it like really doesn't land.
And they're walking in a steady pattern. That is the worst line in the movie, by the way. Because I mean, look at the timestamp.
I can't. Where? I mean, I get what they're doing. It's a paradoxical. This is only the beginning.
All right, so we're closing out here. A couple of facts. In addition to Dune Part 2, which obviously, since this movie made a lot of money, is coming, that will finish the story of the novel Dune, where screenwriter John Spates mentioned that there's a potential for it.
This is only half the book.
This is questionably half. This is technically only one third, but they sort of fuzzed some of it. But yeah, it's less than half the book.
Oh my god.
A lot of the middle part, though, nothing really happens, so you can kind of skip over it.
We're really not selling the book.
Anyways, they want to also make a trilogy, which is the final movie based on the second book, Dune Messiah. And I'm kind of conflicted on that one, as Dune does end at a reasonable place, assuming that the book ends where the 1984 movie ended, and it tells a complete story. So that being said, I haven't read Dune Messiah, so I don't know how and where it continues with that epic. But if they can fit it all into one movie, which again, as Martin said, it's a shorter book, that could lead to interesting things. And then in terms of runtimes, the plot of this full 155-minute movie is told in 98 minutes of the 137 minutes of the original Dune in 1984, and in the first 104 minutes of the 270 minutes of the miniseries in Dune from 2000. So this movie told...
I feel like you need to put that in the notes. That was really hard for me to understand as you said it.
This movie told less with more time. So it did in 155 minutes what a different movie did in 98 and what a miniseries did in 104.
Okay.
So I know we give that fight scene a lot of crap for not doing good military tactics. That would have taken time. And I think that they could have done that if we both agree they did less visions, fewer visions,
Yeah.
and I'll outright say it. They should have stopped.
Unless, honestly, they wasted a lot of time panning to Timothy Chalamet. Like, you only needed to do that when he gets high on spice the first time. You don't have to do that every time to indicate he's going to have a vision. Give the audience, like, a little bit of credit. And sure, you could say, like, oh, they don't waste a ton of time on it, but they keep panning back to his face in the middle of the vision. Just show the vision, and then whatever happens afterwards, him passing out, whatever.
And that's the big thing, is that they could have cut this arguably 40 minutes earlier, done a different cut of it, but like I just kept saying, the entire fight scene of him going against Lamis, who we don't know, we have no connection to, was unnecessary. Short of the fact that we saw it happen in visions.
Yeah.
And
you could have scrapped that whole part and ended it sooner, and it would have made more sense.
Yeah, so when we go off air, because I'm saving this for scripting the book, I'll tell you exactly the perfect point to end it, because it actually aligns with Dune, the book. And that's all I really have to say. Do you have any other final comments on it? Oh, sorry, one last thing. I did forget. So they never actually showed the importance of the desert mouse, which is really important. And I'm not going to spoil that here, but it comes into the sequel, and you have something to look forward to. So they highlighted a specific animal, showed how it adapted to the desert, and then it never had any payoff in this cut of the movie.
Yeah, that was weird. Literally all they did was say, see, even the desert mouse learns to survive.
Right.
It's weird to have foreshadowing at the end of a movie, even if you know that there's going to be another movie.
They didn't, though. They filmed this. They wanted there to be a second movie, but that wasn't a guarantee.
I'm attempting to give them credit.
Fair enough.
I still think that that's a weird choice.
That's fair. So, yeah, sorry. I apologize for cutting you off, but any other closing thoughts about this version of Dune? Do you want to read the book?
This movie is confusing if you haven't read the source material. It's not impossible to understand, but there's a lot of stuff that, like, apparently the woman could choose to have changed the sex of her baby.
That's my assumption. It doesn't outright say that.
Okay, well, it's confusing. There's a lot of, I have more questions than I have answers about Dune.
That's fair.
I don't know.
Are you entertained for 3 hours?
3 hours is a bit of a stretch. It's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie.
That's fair.
It's a pretty movie. It's very well shot. I would have changed things.
Well, there you have it. I would have changed things. The Adriana story.
Yes.
But I want to thank all of you for watching this video, whether you were live, whether you were in the chat, whether you are watching this at a later point. I want to thank all of you for joining us in this watch party. It was a lot of fun. I had fun. My wife had fun.
I had fun.
Okay.
It was fun to talk through.
Our dog slept through it.
Rufus did not have fun.
He likes being in whatever room you're in.
That's true.
So with that, I am going to say thank you all for watching this, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.